Welcome in, Shield Brothers and Shield Maidens, to Shield's Rest. I'm Fry, and today I'm joined with Mark, Drew, and Joe, and we're just going to be discussing a little bit of lessons learned and some overview after our first one-shot with Lancer. So let's mount up. All right,
And just
so
gonna.
I guess the first question that I have is as far as new players, like myself included, how did y'all feel as just a kind of just generic overview, right? Like you've played it. What are your like initial thoughts coming off of the game? Particularly Joe, I'm interested in since I know all of us like had played for the first time, but at least me, True, and Mark had some experience with it, discussing it. But you pretty much came into it fresh. Like I think we had the 30-minute to an hour discussion beforehand on like what you can do in combat, and other than that, you just kind of read by yourself. So how was it going into basically this game fresh right into combat?
All right. So this is the first time I played Lancer. 1.5 hour quick learn, come out of it, and it's very similar to other types of like role playing games, and also like my first time playing Foundry. So maybe that was thrown into it. Like, okay, well, this is a lot different than what I've seen before, but then it's also familiar at the same time. I did like that aspect. I wasn't rolling really well, but that comes with the game, RNGesus, as they say. But otherwise, I did enjoy my time, and I do hope to hopefully get a new game going again. That would be fun, and try to kill or even like go instead of going just straight to the action, go into more of role playing our characters more, because I do like that aspect as well. And I hear, based on how you guys explained it before, that's a very like heavy part of the game. It can be anyway, is to just interact between you and the other pilots, in a sense.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's like the limit of the one shot, right? Is that we're gonna jump straight into combat. I'd say that's like a big chunk of what the game does well too, is the tactical combat side of the thing. So yeah, I am excited to try and run like a short campaign almost in it to see that side of it and actually go get to see NPCs and explore like a planet in a galaxy. But no, I definitely understand that for sure. But what about you two? How do y'all feel coming out of it?
I think if I could just highlight one thing that Joe said that I agree with is where he was talking about how it's kind of familiar as other tabletop role playing games. I think that's something on this channel we're really hoping to highlight is that all tabletop role playing games are similar in a sense where you can pick them up and play them pretty quickly. Especially if you play more systems, then you're even more aware of things when they are new or they do change. And I think adding in the VTT, like he said, it's his first time playing, that can make it easier sometimes. Like for me, I'll give my example of the play. I was still kind of uncertain how combat flows, how the roles work, things like that. So having the VTT, I think, helped kind of ease that in. So I wasn't worrying about that as much, and I could focus on, which where I should be on the field, and I knew like how an attack would work, but I wasn't certain how the numbers played out. But I didn't have to worry about it. I could go in, make the attack, the numbers would happen, and then I could adjust based off the role. So I think that was something that actually helped enhance Lancer for us the first time playing, was having that, I don't want to say handicap, but having those extra helpful things that Foundry
Safety
kind of
net
takes
almost.
care of automatically, right?
Oh yeah, no, I agree with that because in all honesty, like when you understand game systems or you have at least something familiar to work off of, it kind of eases you into it a lot better and it allows you to just focus on what is different and what is kind of interesting about this particular system. So like for me, it was very much so getting used to, okay, obviously I make an action roll of some kind, I make an attack of some kind, but how that works is a little bit different, but it's still pretty much the same thing. You're going to roll a dice, either you hit or you miss, and then you're going to figure out if that weapon's actually going to be really good for you or not. Realizing you got to reload the cyclone cannon, and like, okay, great, now I have to redo that thing by comparison to waiting for the rail gun to charge for me. Like figuring out how you cycle through your stuff takes a second, but it's going to be really quick. It's going to be very quick when you get used to all these different types of systems because you're going to see different cooldowns and different ways that systems go about this kind of thing. And I think Lancer nails it when it comes to the tactical side. I'm very much so interested in getting more into like the role play side of things and get more into the world and then still get that nice tactical flavor. Because although that was 3.5 hours, it did not feel like it.
It did not. Yeah, I can't wait to play Lancer again. I said it in the video, but like the combat, really, that's all we got to do. But we kind of knew the combat was going to be more tactical, more in depth, take longer. But we wanted that, right? We wanted to see like what Lancer's
Yeah.
capable of. And I mean, I have fun in every game we play. Don't get me wrong when I say this, but I was so anxious when it wasn't my turn. I was like, I wanted to have my turn so bad. And in D&D, I didn't really have that. Like I was able to wait my turn. You know, it's kind of like a systematic thing. But in Lancer, where there's like robots and rockets, and I was like, let me go, right? Like I wish it was a Daggerheart situation where I could just take like 4 actions in one. You know, that's what I was. I was really wanting to like turn on the Daggerheart brain. But yeah, I had a
Oh, I
blast.
was
It was
feeling
really
that
fun.
too. I was so feeling that with the Daggerheart. I'm like, I
Yeah,
just want to go already. Just let me go. Why is it not my turn right now? You know, like I
yeah.
just want to hit him with that railgun already. It was
That
killing me,
railgun
but
was
I
railgun
loved
was
it so much.
clutch.
Yeah.
I know.
Thank
I
goodness they
think,
only had 1 health.
and I'm sure it would like break the balance. It would have to be like a place thing, but I think it would be super fun to use the like a Daggerheart style initiative in that one. The only hard part would be like when you're tracking like the railgun, since it is like round based and everything. It's like how do you determine when that is?
Yeah,
But I do think when it comes to it, I mean, initiative in general, I do like the no initiative system. I'm really liking that a lot.
Oh yeah.
But I like to what you're saying, Mark, as far as like you're always like jurying on edge, and I think that goes down to there are so many options you can do.
yeah.
Not only are you like I think with like when D&D, you pretty much know what you're gonna do every combat, every round to
Rage
round.
and attack. Rage and attack.
Yeah, or it's like I'm a bard. I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna hypnotic pattern, and then I'm gonna hand out inspiration. Right? Like you usually have
Yeah,
that, but here you can like think that, and then like I bust out a whole new mob that invades you and fries your system, as opposed to one that's been like bashing you in the face the last 3 rounds, and it completely changes what you have to do. And so yeah, I do like that where it's like any little thing can change what you do, and you have like 8 options to respond to it. And it's how do you want to do it?
yeah. You started doing the tech attacks, and that immediately, like literally, first turn of combat changed my whole like outlook and expectation of what we were gonna fight. Because I was very much
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna be this silent guy blipping around and stabbing people. Then you started shutting down my systems, and I was like, oh crap, I can't do that now. What do I do? And it was just like exciting to want to try to do everything. And I think that's partly because it was the first time playing. But like you just said, there's so much you can do in Lancer, and how the systems work, and you can kind of play off of different parts of your mech and your pilot, really in a sense, while you're in combat.
True. I also liked that when I was in between my rounds, I'm like, what am I gonna do? How I can like jump back here and then like use my ability to like run into something else and like charge it. But then I'm like, okay, now he's gone too far. I can't do that now. So what am I gonna do now? And then I had to like change up what I was thinking about
Yeah,
doing every single round, and it just made it more like, okay, this is gonna how I do it. Okay, never mind. This is gonna how it's like you have to like think on your toes as you're going too, which is pretty cool.
which I would say it makes it feel like you're actually in the mech, because like in a live battle, you would be
Yeah.
doing that. You would be shifting based on the what's going on around you. So it really felt like we were actually in our mechs piloting these things, but using our
Yeah.
pilot brains to like make the decisions. That's what I loved about it too.
Yeah, I think the system really lends itself to like you don't even necessarily have to make a character. You can just make you
Yeah,
in the game
yeah,
and then just role play what you would do in that scenario because you're
yeah.
in the mech anyways. And I think
Yeah.
Yeah.
I That is a good point because honestly, the mech has a character of its own. I mean, the fact that Joe's over there trying to ram people and then Brown's trying to like freaking blink in and out,
Teleport.
and then I'm just
Yeah,
here like I'll just sit here and I'll fire and fire and fire,
yeah,
and I'm just sitting there. It just changes the way you play things immediately, so you don't even need a specific character that has a tragic background of their parents dying or something to that effect,
yeah.
and you can just stick with how your mech actually plays, and that just influences your like how you're going to play so much more. Love that.
I'm sure it's like uh, because of the variety, right? You can almost like I feel like when you have those limits in like you're in a 12 class system, you're like, what kind of character is going to be a barbarian? Whereas here it's like you really get to just make the character because there's going to be a mech that like flavors onto the personality of the character that you're making or your own personality, right? So I think you do get a little more freedom almost in a sense of like, I don't have to like tie the two together. I can pick one and then build off it and vice versa. But yeah, no, I definitely agree. To kind of like backtrack too on like all the ways to response to, I feel like that's where I wouldn't say I struggled GMing it, but there was a lot of things that like I was almost afraid to do so I didn't overwhelm y'all. Like I could have, in theory, right? I'd really let y'all beat on me because I wanted to see what y'all can do. But I think if I was like, once you guys are experiencing it, I don't think I used cover once. And I think that's one thing I would change if we went back again, now that you guys are like experienced. A lot of it's supposed to be, hey, I'm going to come out, invade, shoot you, and I got 3 spaces left. I'm going to run back behind the corners and just do that. And I kind of let y'all sit in your bubble. So not to,
Yeah, you did.
and I kind of did it on purpose, right? I didn't want to overwhelm you with like, I'm going to invade and burn through your systems, and then I'm going to go hide in the dark and make you come to me, right? But I think that is one thing I would have changed too. But again, wanted y'all to feel the system out, so to speak.
I think to that point, that's like one of the really good sides about Lancers, because like you said, we'll be traveling to different planets or being dropped into random places, and so the environment that your combat will be in will shift greatly. Where, not to talk about other TTRPGs, but it's usually more, you're walking down the forest and then you're going to fight in the forest. So like, the environment and being ready. And I think that's part we should talk about too, is with Lancer, you're able to switch out your systems and switch out your mechs even. And like, if you have the intel going into a combat zone, you know what you'll need potentially, which I thought we knew. And then the tech attacks started happening, but you can really like swip and swap your build to what you think you're going to be running into, and I really like the thought of that. We haven't seen it much because we haven't got to play a lot, but I definitely want to play Lancer more, and I think that's something that will be great for how the system's supposed to work, right?
I super agree with that because honestly, you can't get that in like a fantasy RPG. Like you're
Right.
pretty much only going to get that in a mech RPG to be able
Yeah.
to do that kind of thing where you're going planet by planet and then being able to swap out your build and everything. And I think that's actually kind of a good note for even just GMs in general, regardless of what genre we're playing, is to kind of remember that, oh yeah, you can have and support your players in a different way, especially if they're supported by a guild or a military or whatever, and you can give them different loadouts than just their typical old armor that they're all used to and their typical weapons that they're used to. Why not kit them out with different things based off of a more tactical sort of experience, which I hadn't even really thought about doing because it's always just the group going around and adventuring, but being able to swap that out and being able to bring a different set of gear to bear on the enemy is so much more interesting and probably a little bit more fun. I mean, let's face it, a good campaign you can't go wrong with, but you kind of need some variety in there, and you can't just have the same old character. Even when you level up, it still feels like the same old character. You want to be able to bring in that variety of capability. And I feel like there is a way that we can do that in some of these other genres, but really didn't even think about it until we got into Lancer, until we started talking about this stuff. And I was like, how would we go about that in these other systems?
For sure. And that's actually like because that was the biggest thing when I was like, not the biggest thing because there's a lot going into the prep for it, but when I was trying to like tie it all together, I was like, okay, what am I going to offer them as a reward? Like, what's the rewards in the game? And as I'm like going through them, there really is no rewards. Like, there's no like magic items or anything like that. The game pretty much straight up says like, hey, a good reward if you're trying to give them something physical is give them the one-time use of a system from a mech they don't have. And I thought that was like, it seemed so obvious when I read it, but it was like, that's a genius. So it's like, you talk with your players. I'm like, man, I'm really stuck between these two mechs. I'm like, cool. The reward for the mission you just went on is I will give you a one-time use of this system and this system, and then you can see how it plays. So when you level up, you know which way you want to go.
Yeah, that's pretty
I
cool.
thought that
I
was
do
really
like I
cool.
do like that. Yeah, you get to like kind of try mech out before you fully invest into it.
Yeah, that would be cool to do. And if I remember correctly, you can also like swap out different weapons from different systems, right? Like from different platforms for yours, and that would be cool to see implemented more. And like, oh, I can use like this whip from this one instead of my like pike or whatever I had, and be able to like test that out.
That's
That'd
like
be cool to see.
multi-classing. You're playing a
Yeah, pretty
Nelson, but
much.
you're using a whip or something from a different mech. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
what you mean. That would be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's also one too. There's like because a lot of I think the war pike as well as something else has like the thrown property, and there's like a talent you could take that like not only enhances that, but it basically makes it a returning weapon. So you could actually, it's like a melee based class, but you can turn it into like almost like a Thor build, right? Where you're just like, and the power knuckles work, so you can literally like throw your fists at them and it like comes back, which I thought was like, I saw that after the one shot. I like randomly saw it on like a video or like Reddit post or something. I was like, that sounded cool. And it was like
That would be
the combat basically played out to where he just like shoots 3 fists and they all bounce back. Which I thought
awesome.
was really cool. Obviously, it's using the same mech system and all that, but it just like made me think of like how different you can build it just by taking like one talent and you use all the same weapons and everything.
that's awesome.
I
That
will say
reminds me
too,
of like the monk. Oh, go on.
I will say too, not a negative comment or not meant to be one, but I was looking back over the talents and everything because I was, after we played, I was like, okay, I definitely could have like used this talent instead or went deeper into this talent versus the other one that I did, and I'm not familiar with all the names just yet, but I think like Predator, I went like too heavy in where it would have been better if I went brutal. But looking back through them all again, and my idea of how I wanted to play the Mourning Cloak, I was kind of limited to like these are really the 3 talents that would benefit me the most. So like the flexibility maybe wasn't there as much for me, but that also could have been my rigid like I want to play the Mourning Cloak as like a teleporting stealthy assassin, which it's mostly supposed to be. But in that point, I could have went like completely different with talents and built a Mourning Cloak that was a lot more sturdy or a lot more in the leadership role. There's one where I can like give allies commands and make them attack, and you can do that in any mech. It's just really like which mech are you using and how you want to play. And I think that's best served obviously with like the obvious cookie cutter path that would be for the Mourning Cloak. I'm obviously much more efficient if I'm doing like the stealthy assassin and picking all the infiltrator and prowler and hunter and all those talents. But I very well could have done something way different. It just would maybe be a little bit weird if people are not used to that style, right?
Sure.
Well,
And
to that
I think
end,
that
you kind of did
oh,
go
go
with a stealthy build, and we were in a very much so upfront and kinetic situation,
Yeah.
which was the wrong tool to bring to that
And I stuck to one
encounter.
guy the
But
whole time.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I could have, and it was maybe a blind spot for me as a GM. Like I helped you build that, and then I got so tunneled into like, all right, this is like what it is, and I didn't think maybe I should set up an assassination scenario for you. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, that comes with the limits of one shots too. Because if we're in a like long term campaign, I'm gonna know, yes, I'm gonna set up some more stealth based ops to let you shine, and then some
Right.
more combat heavy, you need to destroy this target to let true shine, and getting those like kind of up close and personal fights like more, maybe swap into a whole bunch of grunts to where that Nelson can shine, where you're just up in
Mm-hmm.
that melee range and just like one shot in these little things. So definitely agree to that point where it's like I didn't give you the opportunity to like shine in the build that you
It was
made.
still very fun. Don't
Sure.
get me wrong, I had a blast. But yeah, I also was like so new, right? It was the first time playing. But if I had more experience, I think I would have immediately known like, oh, I should probably go out kill all the drippers, and like take care of like the smaller units. But really, I didn't know that the red guy was like an elite guy, and so I was sticking him the whole time, thinking, oh, this next attack will kill him. This next attack will kill him, and then I wasn't picking up that oh, he's attacking twice around, and he's like clearly way stronger. But I think if I had more familiarity with the system, I might have like picked up on that sooner, and I would have maybe changed what I was doing. So I don't think you did a bad job. I think it was just that's what a new player can maybe suffer from is like not knowing, hey, you're attacking the biggest guy when really you're this stealth unit that should be taking care of the little ones.
No, yeah, for sure. And then that's one thing I was gonna ask too. Like, how did y'all feel about because we didn't go too much into it, but for those that had watched and like now after the fact, those were templated, right? So you could have the thing that I was calling the Revenant was an elite, but it's not always an elite. I took like a
Mm,
assault mech and then gave it that template, which gives it the extra action, bumps up its what it can do. So you could have fought like a regular version of that, and it would have been a completely different fight. So
oh,
how did
gotcha.
that feel, kind of in the moment, seeing this like one, you have these elites, and then you have the grunts, which are I was throwing a lot more of those at you, but as you found out, they were 1 HP, and as long as you could hit
Yeah,
them, they were just like dropping left and right.
or like blast them.
If you could hit him.
Yeah, if you could hit them.
Joe, why don't you go
I could
first?
hit
We've
them.
been over talking you.
um, yeah, like it was good having the builds like you had, be able to like, okay, so this guy, he's red, and then there's a bunch of blue grunts, like, but we didn't know at the time, unfortunately, that that's how you color coded them. I mean, obviously, the hindsight's 2020. You probably would have gone after the blue ones, and then I probably drippers, yeah, dripper, like
Drippers.
yeah, and then I would have gone probably after the a little bit heavier ones, and then True would have just been sitting back and just blasting them from afar, no matter wherever they
He
were.
did that
So
anyway.
he did, but he was also our cover for a lot of the time when we were getting attacked by the heavier ones too.
That's
Like
true.
the was the third one that came out that had the Gatling gun, and then he just got rid of
Disabled
it completely,
Yeah.
and
We
we were
only
just
even got
hiding
to
behind.
use it.
Don't worry.
Yes, so it was like that was good to have him there. It was I'm sure they would have, like you said, hid behind something right after shooting him, or maybe they didn't have enough space. They would have tried to get behind something so that they wouldn't get shot. But yeah, it would have been good had we known a little bit more. But obviously, first time playing, so it's not like we can go back in time and change our tactics. Just go forward from here.
For sure.
I will
No,
say that
I'll say from
that
my side.
Barbarossa's passive cover was more broken than we really, realized. I think, like watching it back and really
Mhm.
understanding more now, I was like, damn, that's a really good, that's a really good mech. At least from the few I've seen. But I was like, yeah, Barbarossa was doing work for sure.
Yeah, I think that
Wasn't picked
that
initially for
middle
that, but would do it again.
that middle part of the combat is when I started to see my downfall, because I think it all started to click at once. Like you all started recognizing the systems, the attacks, how you can evade. I think at that point, if I would have, if I was trying to win, right? Because I'm not trying to win in this scenario. That's when I could have like swapped to cover to make it more even. But I was to like talk about that. Sam, I'm going to talk about it a little bit later. But I want to talk about now the moment. What peaked for me during that whole thing is the moment True absolutely demolished my elite in one round. That was my favorite, one of my like top favorite GM moments of like all time. Because I know in the beginning, when you're a GM and a player just absolutely ruins your encounter, it like sucks. But I've like as I've gone on GMing, those moments are like the best when like you realize your players got you and nothing just feels better. So I'll just like a little caveat off of that. That was like my one of my favorite moments to just like be just completely shut down. Like that thing became useless. If it was any other mob, it would have been fine because they had backup weapons, but that thing had one weapon and it was based all around that weapon. And I was like, he just sits in the corner and cries is actually his action.
As soon as he popped up,
Yeah.
that Barbarossa was like target acquired, just blast them.
Yeah.
That was great.
Because
Oh
that thing was
man.
going to like no joke, that thing could have like if I had rolled well, could have like easily shredded y'all like in a round.
Oh, I
Like
was I
just
was
gone
afraid
through a
of
whole
it for
structure.
sure because
Yeah.
anytime it's later in combat and a new mob pops out, you're like, okay, this one's probably got something extra.
Yeah.
Well, to me, like he was bigger. He had the bigger weapon. I'm like, I don't know what that is, but all I know is I need to just attack him first while you guys dealt with the other side of the field. And let me just see what I can do with this guy. I was not expecting to break his weapon. Like that's not what I was expecting. I was just trying to like put as much damage on him as possible, so that way the next turn when I finally got to go after I suffered whatever he was going to levy at me, I could at least hopefully put him out of commission, if not put him on the brink.
Yeah, I like too
That
that
was wild.
because you were the Barbarossa and you were the biggest one, that worked really well for us because you were like, even like first couple rounds of combat, he was hitting you for like 5 damage, 5 damage. I was like, how is he taking all these hits? Because I only have 9 health. I'm like, how is he still alive? But you were taking a lot of the hits, which is good. And that shifted a little bit later on, but at the beginning, that was helpful.
And then
I agree. I
y'all
just wish you did more damage. I was like, what is going on? How is he only dealing one and then
I
dude's
think
taking no damage because
running
of
a
armor,
lot
then dealing
also.
one and nothing?
I had a couple
It's
low rolls,
wild.
and I don't know enough to watch the Foundry back, but I think there were probably some benefits from like talents and things that I was supposed to probably be like adding in. Like I had like 2 or 3 like +1 advantages or whatever you call it, and I don't know that those were calculating in, but I still had fun. Like I said, I mean, I rolled a little bit low, just like
Yeah.
Joe, but it was definitely fun. I think next time, my plan is to swap out a few talents and things, and I'll be a lot more effective just in general. So that and learning the system more and going through combat, I think will aid greatly in playing a type of mech that I want to play.
I mean, I will say there was a lot of times too where I was checking it on the sides because there would be one where y'all like had plenty of advantage and all that, and it would be low, and y'all just really had some like
Trash
unlucky
rolls.
have like the advantage, and like your d6 would roll like a 1 and a 2 and another 1. I was like, that sucks.
I think there was 1.2. We'll talk about Joe's. He's got a kill. I didn't even get a kill, but I think Joe's kill was a good one too. When I was watching it back, it was the Psionic Ooze, the Black Witch mech that you had out. He hit it once, I think, and then you like went invisible or teleported or something. And he got like the opportunity attack and like critted and destroyed it. That was that was like a second gotcha to the GM. I think that was really good watching that back. Because we were like,
right before he got away
for Joe the whole time. We're like, Joe's got to roll high eventually, and then he critted just one hit this thing. It was awesome.
Yeah, I was not expecting the damage because I think you had like something that was like giving you extra damage on crits too. It just like
we both had that from Brawler, I think maybe.
Yeah, I think so
something, but
as
yeah,
well.
Brutal.
it went from like okay, he like did a little bit of damage of it, and then I'm like, oh no, you actually eviscerated it. Just melted it off the map.
It was the attachment that I had for mine. That's what it was, because I got the extra 1d6.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
when I
that
hit
thermal charge.
the thermal chart, yeah.
But there is a level 1 talent that you can take that makes you on crit do the maximum damage. I think it's from Blade Master maybe. The first level tier is when you crit on a 20, you do
Yeah, you did have Blade Master.
maximum I'm like, that's really good for any
Oh
mech
yeah, I
to
think so, yeah.
take one level in that is really good, I think. And that's what I saw.
Well, that was like my favorite kill.
Yeah,
like that was the
really
best. Because I was scared of that witch because I'm like, that thing's probably
Yeah.
coming after me to shut me down and like just put me out of commission because the elite, you were just kind of tanking the elite for us
I was
while
like, hey,
Joe
over
was
here.
kind of like, okay, I'm going to
Over
go
here.
off. Yeah. I'm like, man, that thing's coming for me to just stop me from being able to just take out every single mob. And I'm like, this is not going to be fun. And then that happened. Freaking out. I love that. That was the best one, I think.
Yeah, those
I had to get
drones,
like
too.
the
Those
worst
drones were
part.
crazy.
Yeah.
You know, I'm glad I almost made the witch the elite, and then at the last time I was like, let me go with the easier model because if that witch was an elite,
Yeah,
that would have
Black
been
Witch is
bad because
crazy.
I did not expect the tech attack to like just absolutely burn through that Mourning Cloak. I think it was the Mourning Cloak. That was what was like
we were
putting
all
it in you.
vulnerable to tech attacks from my perspective. We weren't really in there for that.
Yeah, we had to heal every single time that even happened to us.
Yeah.
And it was only one other thing we could like. So the tech attacks would hit two of our like systems pretty much, and we would have to heal one or the other. And
we were all jammed.
Like
one of us was jammed like the whole time, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One or both of us were jammed like the whole fight, which was really detrimental. But I think if I knew that, right, like back to that, if I knew like jammed would affect me so greatly, I would look at what I can do to maybe benefit from, I don't know, another system or something that could help prevent jamming a little bit better. I didn't look fully at like what extra items and things you can get, but I think there are like other, I know there's like smoke bombs and things like that, but I don't know if there's items that would help you like be more resistant to.
So that is I'll kind of like echo the warning that basically I got through like Reddit and Discord and all that was like, it's one of those things where like in any kind of RPG, right? Like if I as a GM really want to punish you, right? I can just drop a dragon on you at like level 3, right? Like that is something you can do. Tech attacks is kind of that in Lancers. So like I could literally go in and just I'll just tech attack you every round and I could shred you. And it is what it is. So it's one of those things that I read through and I will echo that advice as we saw in that. Like be very mindful and careful of the tech attack because I can technically tech attack you every round and still attack because I can do a skirmish and then I can tech attack. Yeah. So it's very easily I could throw like 2 witches at you, 3 witches at you, and then just boom, 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 and you're dead.
It does make me want to play a goblin though. I'm not gonna lie. I'll just be in the back like just tech attacking everybody.
Yeah, if I get to play, I'm going the Horus route. And those are I love those mechs. Those got some fun.
You don't get to play. You're the GM for Lancer.
I know.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Gosh.
I'll find some
What do you
random-
think you are?
random game store.
You can play the NPCs, all right?
Yeah.
And then I'll come in
No,
with
but
the
that
what
did
is it, the
make me think
manticore that
like
can
we
do
do
bullets,
need
so
to
forth.
have that made me thought we need to have those better roles situated, like as far as like, okay, maybe not too melee. Maybe we do
Yeah.
have somebody who can deal with the text and maybe can help us, I don't know if there's that support like that. Well, yeah, I think there is a support that can basically help with that kind of stuff. But yeah, next time.
That's where this game
Next
gets
time.
tactical, right? You can get really military with it, like
Yeah.
you're saying. You can have like the one tech guy that's counter teching the other team. So I think that's really militant and strategic.
I'd love to
You
try
can
that
really
out.
weave that in. Yeah.
I was gonna say, Joe, you're calm. Okay, you're calm for life.
Yeah, you're the calm guy next time.
Yeah, what were you
That'd be
doing
fun.
out there punching people? That's not you.
Yeah. That's why he
I had a
rolled
wrench
so
in my
low.
hand.
You are.
He was ineffective because he wasn't being his true self.
Yeah,
The
You
game
got me
knew.
there.
a lie.
Yeah. Gotta swap
Yeah,
it up next time.
How did y'all like because I really liked it about this system where I would almost call it a fail forward, but there's a lot of things in place, particularly the overcharge, where it's like it's almost expected, hey, you're gonna burn and damage yourself to like keep moving forward. How did y'all like that?
I
Like
loved
that
it.
side of the game? Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
interesting. I will say it was definitely interesting. I found that action economy kind of sucked a little bit, just because it
Little
felt
bit.
like you couldn't do as much as you wanted to, and you almost had to overcharge just to be able to do more things.
Mhm.
I do like the balance, that kind of cost balance, but at the same time, I'm like, man, I want to be able to do just a little bit more, just a little
Yeah.
bit.
I think if you really know your system well and you know like how far you can go, which still was new for me, I didn't know like because looking back, I was like my first turn or maybe second turn, I stabilized and overcharged, and I was like looking back, I probably wouldn't have done it so quickly, but I wasn't understanding fully like how much further I could go before having to do that. But I think if you had that all worked out in your head, you could use that and just go out in a blaze of glory type of thing, and like you've said, Fry, the world is supposed to be like easy access to a mech. You just 3D print it. So if you're coming near the end of the battle or the mission, you can really just overcharge yourself to death, and you're fine if you win. So it's like a gamble in a way. So I like that.
Yeah, and y'all
aspect.
definitely, in theory, could have had more fight in you because like your mech exploded just off bad luck. Like you
Yeah.
had two more structure to go through. You just happened to roll. I think you just straight up rolled the snake eyes, and it's like, oh, mech's blown up.
It
You're
worked
done.
out for the story though. It was fine.
Yeah, it
made
was
it cool.
beautifully cinematic, but you know, statistically, you could have kept fighting at that point. You're not always going to roll that snake eye, so you probably would have got at
Right.
least one more pool of health through.
Mhm.
So y'all, I mean, I've said it off this, and I'll say it here. I think y'all did a great job though in like utilizing the systems and like really pushing the mechs forward. I think that's how combat should really go. If you're, I would almost see it as like you should almost be on the cusp of like defeat at the end of those big battles.
Right.
Then because that's just how it is, right? Because like you said, it's not like, oh, I got to save up money to buy
Yeah,
a new
no
mech.
reason to
Like
hold
no,
back.
yeah,
Gotta wait for my long
Not at all.
rest. Yeah. Just destroy the mech and get a new one. But yeah, no.
Speaking of what you brought up with the structures, I really liked that aspect of it. Like you only have I had like 16 health, but then just multiply that by 4 because everyone has 4 structure, and you have a lot more health than you even realize. Even if you go down one structure, it's not the end of the world, and then you can keep going until you hit 0 structure, which obviously would then not be good for you. But you can always get your mech later, so that was the cool thing about like I tried to keep myself above that 4 structure, and I only dropped down 1 to 3 structures left. And even that was like, okay, I forgot about that. I should be good then. And then just keep hammering on to the next enemy as much as I could, or lack thereof.
I definitely noticed a ramp up once the I can't. It might have been you, Joe, the first person to like lose a structure, and y'all realize that like that wasn't the end. I noticed a ramp up from y'all. You're like, oh, okay, we can like push.
Yeah.
And then Mark pushed
Really?
too far, too fast.
I
Yeah.
had to. It was like the last round, you know. That's what was like, why not go all out? I got my brother here
Go
to
all
pick
out.
me up in his Barbarossa size 3 mech and safely take me home. I wasn't worried, you know. It's probably not
Cradle
the
you all
first
the way
Mourning cloak
there.
I've lost. Yeah, I probably do that religiously on our missions.
Just to kind of like go further on that, a question to Joe as well as to follow up on it, and then the both of you, which mechanic, right, did y'all find the most satisfying or even the most frustrating? Like you said, the structure and the stress. You have like, the tech attacks and the, like the saves and all that. Like, was there any mechanic part of the combat that y'all really, really liked, and one that you really felt frustrated in, and kind of like why you felt that way? I'll throw it to True first there because I feel like you look like you got some thoughts on it.
Well, I've been thinking about that for a bit now because I really love the system overall. Like, it's a really fun system overall. I love the way that they employ a lot of the different mechanics that are out there. And I think the conditions, although there's not that many conditions, but there's also not so few that you're just like, okay, it's only these couple. I really did enjoy the conditions being jammed, being impaired, adding all these things on top and layering issues after issues. Really thematically, anyways, was pretty fun to think about. Like, as the pilot and you've got this stuff going on, it's getting hot, your stuff's probably sparking or whatever, you've got some really kind of fun moments going on that you can imagine yourself within that mech. I really loved the condition side of things more than anything else, and seeing the tech attacks go off like that and completely destroy your ability to do really much of anything was very interesting and a lot of fun, and just got my mind thinking, oh, how else can we bring that in to other games, into other systems, but into our actual like fantasy games, into even the Star Wars game. How can I do that more to the players to really force them to think outside that box? Because seeing you guys on fire and then staticky and all this other stuff going on was really hyping, really building the tension, ratcheting that up for me. Because I'm like, okay, how can I deal with the things around to stop that from happening to them? Love that. That was my favorite one of all time. I think the one that got me though was probably the amount of attacks that elite had. But I'm like, of course it's an elite. Like, this guy's obviously the big daddy. But man, that was like insane to see how much they could do. And then here we are with like one thing, two things. Like, damn it.
No, for sure. I want to, next time we play, if I could find a way. I got like the lights here. If I could like get them to twitch and flicker whenever I like have a condition on mine, would be like so cool to see. Because that's exactly how I felt like it was too. Like, to like picture it in there. It's like your mech screaming at you that all this is happening. And to that point of like seeing it on there, I think Foundry really helped bridge that gap of like having to play it online versus in person. Like, because that was my like fear. I think was like it's not going to be exciting. It's going to feel very number crunchy. And then the creators of that module like really went all out because it felt so good to like hear the sounds and see the effects, and everything had like a unique thing going on it. And yeah, it really got me hyped once we were in it, because obviously I knew it was going to be there, but to actually see it all like happening in real time was so much fun.
To that point, I completely agree, because when I got to see the weapons start firing off from like literally everybody, but being able to see that and the like melee attacks coming through, that really just brought me even further in. So having that in Foundry is the coolest thing. Just the absolute best. And hearing the boosh, like having that explosion and everything just got me so into it. Yeah, love that. Wholeheartedly agree.
All right. So I've I want to say the fire was probably the one that I hated the most because, well, it looked cool on the thing because you're on fire in Foundry and it's like burning you, like great. But if you don't put it out, it just
Quick.
quickly you're gone. It I think Mark was burned the most, unfortunately, and he had a hard time going going for that, unfortunately. And I think he got up to like 6 or 8 burns, and that
It was pretty
just
bad. Yeah.
yeah, it fizzled him out a little too quickly, which is awesome to see, but like not awesome if you were on the receiving end, but
That's the
yeah.
thing. It's like ignore it and try to push harder to like damage this guy and get rid of him, or risk literally combusting.
Exactly. And hot rock and hard place, as they say.
Yeah, there is actually it's a model in there too, but it's like it was based off like a homebrew rule set that I think I would use in the future. I didn't want to do anything too homebrewy, obviously while we were learning. But there basically was they kind of redid the stress and structure as well, and I think burn is in there well as to kind of like tone it down because exactly of that, like one bad
Mhm.
roll and you just like doubled your stacks because you're like not able to start clearing it. Same with like the structure, it kind of removes that like a that role of like, okay, you've lost one structure and you or two structure and you can just blow up. It kind of like smooths that progression out. And I think I would use that in the future because I do agree. I almost like felt bad, like with the
Mhm.
burn in particular, where I was like, I just have to like play. I was trying to balance the like, what would the NPC do, but also was like, what's fair to someone learning the game. And that was when I got to the point of like the 6 to 7 stacks of burn. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna bite the bullet and not using that anymore because this is very brutal.
I think for me, I'm gonna kind of take two parts here, but for me it was the systems that are available to the mech that I chose weren't as effective as I like anticipated them being from reading it and never having played. So, for example, the Fade Cloak, I was like, that is like an awesome ability. I can just phase out and not be here. But reading back through it, it's like, well, you phase out every turn, and then if you roll lower than the number, then you're just staying phased out. So you're like, it really, my whole character turned into this big gamble and risk because I was either gonna, stay jammed or stay burning or stay invisible. And I did that once just to see how it works and to like see if I could make a cool moment out of it. But I was scared the whole time because I might not be able to come back to the combat. And I think the way I built the Mourning Cloak, I had like two different abilities that kind of did that phase out thing, and one was more detrimental than the other. So I might have the name backwards, but it was that, hey, you got to roll a 1d6, and if you get over a 3, you stay phased out, which means I would lose my whole turn. I couldn't do anything, I couldn't help. I also couldn't be hurt. So when I did start burning and kind of being the one that was close to dying, that's what made me like activate the phase cloak, was more of like a hiding factor. But initially, when I picked that, I was thinking I could use that aggressively to like not be there and then be there when I need to be. But it wasn't. I wasn't able to control it as well as I initially anticipated, and so I think that wasn't as effective as I was hoping it could be, and that kind of let me down in a bit, in a way. But I don't want to say it was a bad ability. I just say I didn't know enough going in and picking that,
Mhm.
and so I probably wouldn't rely on having used that as much. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it, is the systems. The other part I wanted to steal a second one on this was something I wanted to say earlier about the talents. A lot of the talents, like you can just take the first rank of the talent and it's like super good talent. Like obviously the best ability from the talents is like going to tier 3 or whatever you call it and getting like the full ability. But there were some of them like what we took, like the Blade Master, getting like the max damage from the crit, and I think brutal is one of the other ones. Looking back at them, there's like several talents that just taking the first level is like really good for what you it seemed like too good for a first tier talent versus like the second or the third tier was like maybe not necessary where you need to dive all the way in. But I think if you just built 5 1 level talents, you'd be super good.
Yeah, I agree. I think they balance that side surprisingly well was the talents because like you're saying, you're is it better to go to tier 3 on paper? Probably, but to go instead to pick up another level 1, you're not like falling drastically behind
Right.
like your peers, like the other
Yeah.
players. So there's not only flexibility in options, but flexibility in that you're I feel like you don't have as much fear of like, oh, I'm gimping myself by picking this instead of like going to the next one. Like it's
Right.
the flexibility in that like there's really not a lot of wrong choices unless you're like picking a like you're picking goblin and then going with a brawler talent, right? Like if you're
Yeah.
doing that, yeah, you might
Complete
gimp yourself a
opposite,
little
right?
bit. Yeah, but as long as
Mhm.
you're like roughly like I can see how I use this talent in combat, you're go ahead, do it. And then worst case, you take it, you don't like it, next level up, you can literally scrap all the talents you picked and like restart
Yeah,
and just repick all.
that's a great part about Lancer too that we didn't talk about just yet. But yeah, being able to just reset everything is amazing.
Yeah.
And then I guess to kind of wrap it up, I'll throw maybe like a series of questions that kind of all tie together and however best you want to answer it. But interested you the most as a new player in Lancer, and like what was the standout of it?
The standout, I'd say, was just, I guess, the abilities that were getting thrown against us. That it's a lot different than what you would think could be used. Like the tech attacks and just taking down, jamming yourself, and all that was getting thrown against us, and not like having anything you could do about it until your turn, and then you won't be able to like hit or anything after that. That was pretty cool. I really enjoyed having that as my, like, or not even mine, yours. Your ability to do it to us. And that also brings to like the table, like, if you can do it, we can do it.
Yep.
So it's like you're showing us things that we didn't even know we could do, which then brings us to want to, oh, why don't I try that next time? Or let's give this a try next time. It's all like we could have had something to burn you with instead as well. And well, we didn't, but we can always do it again. And hopefully, you'll probably have to put out the fires a little bit, literally. And yeah, I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Those actual like types of attacks as opposed to just smack, wait. It was good.
I think for me, it's the
For sure.
railgun. Obviously, I came in like trying to be more melee and like, you know, cool. And I tried to like not use rockets and guns as much because I wanted to see like how Lancer would work without like using that a lot. But every time True shot his railgun, I was like, okay, I'm just being stupid. I need to use my rockets, you know. And so I think I used them like once, but I think I would focus more on that and not be so focused on like I want to play a melee guy with swords. I think I would be more acceptable to using range attacks because you're going to have to do that to be effective. But that railgun, every time it shot and exploded and left burning damage, I was like, how can this not be like, this needs to be on every team? You know, unless you're going somewhere really tight and compact, obviously. But anytime you're out in the open or getting dropped in somewhere you don't know, having that bad boy on your shoulder, yeah, that's a highlight.
Next time I
Yeah.
next time I want to be a little quicker. Like once I'm more familiar with Foundry, I would have loved to be able to actually go in there and like drop the crater, drop the effects on the spot. 'Cause that was one thing more of a Foundry critique like on my skill of it was I wish I could have done that and like I could have been quicker on destroying the barriers because you technically destroyed like a bunch of cover in there,
Hmm.
but like I at the time I was like I didn't think that I would have to delete this, so I didn't like learn that skill on the fly. And I couldn't remember how I even put the wall up because it was like three different things that I had like layered on top to get the cover to work. I was like, I don't, just someone remember that it's there.
Yeah, no, that railgun was awesome, and that literally was me living my best XV88 life. I was just like, man, for the greater good right now. It was so good. Yeah, no, I love that, but I think this is going to be more of an umbrella kind of comment for me, for what I enjoyed and what stood out to me. And I think I kind of already touched on it. I think we all kind of touched on it at this point, but it's the tactical side of that. Like, it really got me thinking when you were doing stuff that I didn't even realize that we could do. Like, I know you had talked about it, but it did not connect with me. I'm also not a very smart person, but it did not connect with me at the time. And then when I saw it actually happening, I was like, oh, that's what he was talking about, you idiot. Okay, great. So now it makes me want to try and build out a mech that's a little more versatile, that has more options than just big old guns. As much as I love that, but having more than just big old guns, or finding a way to use like the drones to be able to do that kind of thing. Like, how can I employ drones to do this for me so that way I can sit in the back and just try and do a little bit better action economy. But that was the thing that stood out to me most, was just how tactical you can get with this. And it's just so much fun. Even though it feels like a lot of rules, there's really not that many rules to this. It's just a lot of different systems to know, and that's where I think I feel bad for like the GMs at that point because that's a lot of systems to know and understand. But on the converse side, for the players, like that is it's a lot easier and it's just so much more interesting. So yeah, I think the tactical side was really just the big old standout for me that I just love so much about this system. That makes me want to dive more into the book. And in all honesty, I do kind of want to GM for this at some point. Not in the near future, but at some point.
No, definitely. And I'll say from the GM side, just a couple of things that I want to highlight. One, I think if I was ever to even run this in person, I think I would still use Foundry. It was the biggest lifeline I think I had where I didn't have to be nose in the book the entire time because the system covered a lot of that. Obviously, over time, I would learn the rules so I could like verify and all that. But I know a lot of the times, I know for y'all and for me too, I just trusted the system to handle it. And it wasn't until things got wonky that I was like, let me make sure it's doing that right. Um, that and obviously we wanted to have fun with it. We'd been talking about playing it for a while, so I did bump y'all all to level 3 first one shot. If I was to do it again with maybe a separate group or anything, level 0 I think would have been a lot smoother in the sense we ended up getting there towards the end, like everything we started understanding, but it was a lot to learn on both sides. So definitely start at level 0. Use the Everest frame. Everest is a great frame. You can't go wrong with it anyways. And don't be afraid to just make calls. I know if it wasn't with Foundry, I probably would have just been making weird calls left and right. As long as you're just having fun with it. But overall, I can't wait to play again. It was probably one of my most fun GMing experiences because of everything we said with like balancing the conditions, having all the different for the building of the one shot sign. It was such a breeze mechanically because the NPC stat blocks they have in there, applying the templates to like make things different. So I could have gone in there with like just assault and just made like grunt assault, regular assault, elites, and they even have ones called ultras. So I could have even gone further from the elite. That wasn't even the highest tier of templates you can use. And there are like, I think there's got to be at least 20 different NPC types that you can choose from. And so every combat can feel different. You don't have like the same 5 NPC. So get in there, random pick an NPC out if you're not sure. The building side was super easy. The book shows you how to do the different sit reps. They like this was a holdout sit rep. It straight up says pick a spot. This is kind of like the area you need to be in. Hold it for 6 rounds. Like that is the rule set of that mission type. So it's really easy to build. I'll like just to say that. So don't be afraid to jump into it GM wise. Definitely do it. It was a lot of fun. Can't wait to do it again. I'll say that is also where like the last little bit of comment on it. That's what I love most about this. As y'all saw from when we played Daggerheart, I love to go in there and how can I blow all my resources at once? This game does that for me to a T. I loved it. It was so much fun, like seeing what I could stack. Preparing for what y'all could do. Obviously, I was very familiar with it, so I know what y'all could have done as y'all get more familiar with the system. And like this is a nerd's paradise. If you like crunching tactics, what can I do? This is the game for you. But
Yeah.
but hope to see y'all down in the comments. And until next time, keep that shield wall strong.